Chapter 2 of the Executive Branch. Section 1 of the President and Vice President of the Republic. Article 76. The executive power is exercised by the President of the Republic, assisted by the Ministers of State. Article 77. The election of the President and Vice President of the Republic shall be held simultaneously on the first Sunday of October in the first round and on the last Sunday of October in the second round, if there is one in the year preceding the end of the current presidential term. Paragraph 1. The election of the President of the Republic shall imply the election of the Vice President registered with him. Second, the candidate registered by a political party who obtains an absolute majority of votes, not counting blank and null votes, shall be considered elected president. Third, if no candidate achieves an absolute majority in the first vote, a new election shall be held within 20 days after the proclamation of the result, with the two candidates with the most votes competing, and the one who obtains a majority of valid votes shall be considered elected. Fourth, if before the second round there is a death, withdrawal, or legal impediment of a candidate, the candidate with the highest number of votes among the remaining candidates shall be called upon. Fifth, if, in the case of the preceding paragraphs, more than one candidate remains in second place with the same number of votes, the oldest will qualify. Article 78. The President and Vice President of the Republic shall take office in a session of the National Congress, pledging to uphold, defend, and comply with the Constitution, observe the laws, promote the general welfare of the Brazilian people, and maintain the union, integrity, and independence of Brazil. Sole paragraph. If, after 10 days from the date set for taking office, the President or Vice President, except for reasons of force majeure, has not assumed office, the position shall be declared vacant. Article 79. The Vice President shall replace the President in case of impediment and succeed him in the event of a vacancy. Sole paragraph. The Vice President of the Republic, in addition to other duties conferred upon him by complementary law, shall assist the President whenever summoned by him for special missions. Article 80. In case of impediment of the President and Vice President or vacancy of their respective offices, the President of the Chamber of Deputies, the President of the Federal Senate, and the President of the Supreme Federal Court shall be successively called to exercise the presidency. Article 81. If the offices of President and Vice President of the Republic become vacant, an election shall be held 90 days after the last vacancy occurs. Paragraph 1. If the vacancy occurs in the last 2 years of the presidential term, the election for both offices shall be held 30 days after the last vacancy occurs by the National Congress in accordance with the law. Paragraph 2. In either case, those elected shall complete the term of their predecessors. Article 82. The term of office of the President of the Republic is 4 years and shall begin on January 5th of the year following their election. Article 83. The President and Vice President of the Republic may not, without permission from the National Congress, be absent from the country for a period exceeding 15 days, under penalty of loss of office. Section 2. On the powers of the President of the Republic. Article 84. Is the exclusive responsibility of the President of the Republic, paragraph 1, to appoint and dismiss the Ministers of State. 2. To exercise, with the assistance of the Ministers of State, the superior direction of the federal administration. 3. To initiate the legislative process in the manner and in the cases provided for in this Constitution. 4. To sanction, promulgate and publish laws, as well as to issue decrees and regulations for their faithful execution. 5. To veto bills in whole or in part. 6. To provide by decree for the organization and functioning of the federal administration, when it does not imply an increase in expenditure, nor the creation or extinction of public bodies. 7. Extinction of public functions or positions when vacant. 8. To maintain relations with foreign states and accredit their diplomatic representatives. 9. To conclude treaties, conventions and international acts subject to ratification by the National Congress. 10. To decree a state of defense and a state of siege. 11. To decree and execute federal intervention. 11. To submit a message and government plan to the National Congress at the opening of the legislative session, outlining the country's situation and requesting the measures deemed necessary. 12. To grant pardons and commute sentences, after hearing, if necessary, the bodies established by law. 13. To exercise supreme command of the armed forces, appoint the commanders of the Navy, Army, and Air Force, promote their general officers, and appoint them to the positions that are exclusive to them. 14. To appoint, after approval by the Federal Senate, the ministers of the Supreme Federal Court and the Superior Courts, the governors of territories, the Attorney General of the Republic, the President and directors of the Central Bank, and other public servants when determined by law. 15. To appoint, in accordance with the provisions of Article 73, the ministers of the Federal Court of Accounts. 16. To appoint magistrates in the cases provided for in this Constitution and the Attorney General of the Union. 17. To appoint members of the Council of the Republic in accordance with Article 89, Paragraph 7. 18. To convene and preside over the Council of the Republic and the National Defense Council. 19. To declare war in the event of foreign aggression, authorized by the National Congress or ratified by it when occurring during the recess of legislative sessions and under the same conditions, and to decree total or partial national mobilization. 20. To make peace, authorized by or with the ratification of the National Congress. 21. To confer decorations and honorary distinctions. 22. To permit, in the cases provided for in supplementary law, foreign forces to transit through or remain temporarily in the national territory. 23. To send to the National Congress the multi-year plan, the draft law on budgetary guidelines, and the budget proposals provided for in this Constitution. 24. To submit annually to the National Congress, within 60 days after the opening of the legislative session, the accounts relating to the previous fiscal year. 25. To fill and abolish federal public positions as provided by law. 26. To issue provisional measures with the force of law, in accordance with Article 62. 27. To exercise other powers provided for in this Constitution. 28. To propose to the National Congress the declaration of a state of public calamity of national scope as provided for in Articles 167b, 167c, 167d, 167e, 167f and 167g of this Constitution. Sole paragraph. The President of the Republic may delegate the powers mentioned in items 6, 12 and 25, first part, to the Ministers of State, the Attorney General of the Republic or the Solicitor General of the Union, who shall observe the limits set forth in the respective delegations. Question 3 of the responsibility of the President of the Republic. Article 85. The following are crimes of responsibility. Acts of the President of the Republic that violate the federal Constitution and especially against 1. The existence of the Union. 2. The free exercise of legislative power, judicial power, the public prosecutor's office, and the constitutional powers of the federative units. 3. The exercise of individual and social political rights. 4. The internal security of the country. 5. Probity in administration. 6. The budget law. 7. Compliance with laws and judicial decisions. Sole paragraph. These crimes will be defined in a special law that will establish the rules of procedure and judgment. Article 86. Once the accusation against the President of the Republic is admitted by 2/3 of the Chamber of Deputies, he will be submitted to trial before the Supreme Federal Court for common criminal offenses or before the Federal Senate for crimes of responsibility. First paragraph. The President will be suspended from his functions, 1. In common criminal offenses, if the indictment or criminal complaint is accepted by the Supreme Federal Court. 2. In cases of crimes of responsibility after the initiation of proceedings by the Federal Senate. 2nd, if the trial is not concluded after 180 days, the President's removal from office will cease without prejudice to the regular continuation of the proceedings. 3rd, as long as there is no conviction for common offenses, the President of the Republic will not be subject to imprisonment. 4th, the President of the Republic, during his term of office, cannot be held responsible for acts unrelated to the exercise of his functions. Section 4 of the Ministers of State. Article 87. The Ministers of State shall be chosen from among Brazilians over 21 years of age and in the exercise of their political rights. Sole paragraph. Is the responsibility of the Minister of State, in addition to other duties established in this Constitution and in the law, 1. To exercise the guidance, coordination and supervision of the bodies and entities of the federal administration in the area of their competence and to countersign the acts and decrees signed by the President of the Republic. 2. To issue instructions for the execution of laws, decrees and regulations. 3. To present to the President of the Republic an annual report of their management in the ministry. 4. To perform the acts pertaining to the duties assigned or delegated to him by the President of the Republic. Article 88. The law shall provide for the creation and extinction of ministries and bodies of the public administration. Section 5 of the Council of the Republic and the National Defense Council. Subsection 1 of the Council of the Republic. Article 89. The Council of the Republic is a superior advisory body to the President of the Republic and its members include 1. The Vice President of the Republic. 2. The President of the Chamber of Deputies. 3. The President of the Federal Senate. 4. The leaders of the majority and minority in the Chamber of Deputies. 5. The leaders of the majority and minority in the Federal Senate. 6. The Minister of Justice. 7. 6 native-born Brazilian citizens over 35 years of age, 2 appointed by the President of the Republic, 2 elected by the Federal Senate, and 2 elected by the Chamber of Deputies, all with a 3-year term, with no possibility of reappointment. Article 90. Is the responsibility of the Council of the Republic to pronounce on 1. Federal intervention, state of defense, and state of siege. 2. Matters relevant to the stability of democratic institutions. Paragraph 1. The President of the Republic may summon a Minister of State to participate in a meeting of the Council when the agenda includes a matter related to the respective ministry. 2. The law will regulate the organization and functioning of the Council of the Republic. Subsection 2 of the National Defense Council. Article 91. The National Defense Council is an advisory body to the President of the Republic on matters related to national sovereignty and the defense of the democratic state. Its members are ex officio. 1. The Vice President of the Republic. 2. The President of the Chamber of Deputies. 3. The President of the Federal Senate. 4. The Minister of Justice. 5. The Minister of State for Defense. 6. The Minister of Foreign Affairs. 7. The Minister of Planning. 8. The Commanders of the Navy, Army, and Air Force. Paragraph 1. It is the responsibility of the National Defense Council, Item 1, to give its opinion in cases of declaration of war and celebration of peace, under the terms of this Constitution. 2. To give its opinion on the decreeing of a state of defense, a state of siege, and federal intervention. 3. To propose the criteria and conditions for the use of areas essential to the security of the national territory and to give its opinion on their effective use, especially in the border area and in those related to the preservation and exploitation of natural resources of any kind. 4. To study, propose, and monitor the development of initiatives necessary to guarantee national independence and the defense of the democratic state. Paragraph 2. The law will regulate the organization and functioning of the National Defense Council. M.